May, a second problem within our diet today. Again, let me just recap. 38 million people every year that die as a result of preventable diseases. They choose to put unhealthy stuff into their petrol tank. The sports car is not well taken care of. The second one is refined and processed foods. There is a video clip that we are going to let our listeners look at a little bit later on, but just give us a quick insight into refined and processed foods and why they are so dangerous to our health.
Well, again, anything that is refined and processed, like we spoke about the oils, also with other foods, you find that with the processing of the food, a lot is added in and a lot is taken out. And very often the good is taken out in order, for one thing, to preserve the shelf life.
All right.
So if you would take a grain of wheat, for example, when a grain of wheat goes through processing, the outer shell is removed, and that basically contains the bran, the wheat germ,
and that's where the nutrients are.
And lots of minerals and vitamins on the
Correct.
outside.
Correct.
So really, basically what you're left with is a bit of endosperm, or the starch.
Which is nutrient deficient.
Which is completely nutrient deficient.
And no fiber.
Absolutely. And then people have tried, because studies showed that people low in certain nutrients that are found in whole grains became nervous, they became anxious, they became depressed. And so the government in America legislated that these fibers or these grains become enriched through another process where they put back some of the nutrients, but it was not in the correct quantity, it was not in the same way that it had come from the Creator.
So the food is then fortified, but it does not have the desired effect on the health to replace what has been removed in the first place or eliminated in the first place.
Buying bread can certainly be confusing. So what's the difference between wheat bread and white bread? Well, it partially depends on how it's milled. To make white bread, wheat is usually passed through steel roller mills. These remove the grain's outer shell, the bran, as well as the germ at the center. What's left is the endosperm. The nutrients in wheat grain are mainly found in the bran and the germ, the very parts removed in commercial milling. So that's what white bread is. Wheat with basically all the good stuff taken out.
Right, so let us try again and stick as close as possible to the whole. Because once any food is processed or refined, it becomes nutrient deficient. And then we don't get the necessary nutrients into our cells so that we get some good vibrance and health.
Another thing that is compromised when we eat refined grains instead of whole grains is the fiber. And fiber is such an important part of the food, because the fiber helps to keep the body clean. The fiber is like a broom. If I could liken it to a broom, it sweeps the digestive tract clean and it keeps everything in good working order. So fiber, very, very important, all lost when things are processed.
Would you agree that fiber is also important when it comes to release of sugar into the bloodstream?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's another reason diabetics should only have whole grains, brown rice, brown basmati rice, whole wheat bread, and so on, because that fiber, you know, bread is a carbohydrate, rice is a carbohydrate. These are, once they're broken up by the body, they become glucose, they become sugars. So, however, if it is a whole grain that you've eaten, that fiber tends to hold on to the sugar and keep it so that it is released slowly into the blood.
All right. And when it's processed and refined, it causes a sugar spike.
Absolutely.
And that is why diabetics especially are encouraged not to eat processed carbs,
yes.
Like your pasta processed, your white breads, etc., but stay as whole as possible. This is an encouragement for us to stick as close as possible to God's original plan for us in what we eat, that it should be the whole and not the refined or the processed.
It reminds me of the verse in the Bible that says, What God has put together, let no man put asunder. We
Right.
pay for it with our health in the end.
Good point.
World Health Organization this morning has classified processed meat such as bacon and sausage as carcinogenic, directly involved in causing cancer in humans.
Processed meat is clearly linked to an increase in cancer.
Hot dogs or bacon could be just as dangerous as smoking cigarettes.
The World Health Organization had looked at over 800 studies from 10 different countries, finding a direct link to consuming processed meat and cancer. Just one serving of deli meats daily increases your risks of colorectal cancer by 18%. I had no idea that what we ate affected cancer rates, but I never felt like I had eaten a lot of processed meats until I realized that processed meat includes hot dogs, bacon, sausage, salami, ham, pepperoni, cold cuts, and deli slices, basically everything I grew up eating. The World Health Organization classifies processed meat as a Group 1 carcinogen, the same group as cigarettes, asbestos, and plutonium, and classifies red meat as a Group 2 carcinogen. Was this like I had essentially been smoking my entire childhood? If processed meats are labeled the same as cigarettes, how is it even legal for kids to be eating this way? I thought this was new information, but many of these studies have been around for 50 years. I couldn't believe I'd been eating processed meats virtually my entire life and was just now finding out how dangerous they are.
So the third item that we're looking at is sugar and salt and how they affect our health. We looked at grease, oil and fats. We looked at refined processed foods. Now we're coming to sugar and salt, and specifically sugar is a very addictive substance, probably more addictive than what we realize. We all have a sweet tooth, so we all struggle with this one. And I've done some research, especially on sugary drinks that we all love. And just listen to this. Sprite, for example, a 330 ml can of Sprite has 6 teaspoons of sugar. Coke, 330 ml, has 7 teaspoons of sugar. Fanta, surprisingly, has more sugar than Coke, 8 teaspoons of sugar. And Fanta Grape has the most at 9 teaspoons of sugar. Now, the World Health Organization tells us that for a man, 9 teaspoons of sugar a day is more than enough.
Wow. So
And
you can have a Fanta Grape.
that's it for the day, nothing else, according to the World Health Organization. For women, it is at 6 teaspoons of sugar. So women can afford 1 Sprite and that's it, no other sugar. But sugar is hidden everywhere.
Yeah, so I wouldn't recommend that Sprite or that Fanta Grape. I wouldn't recommend it at all because there are other things. Yes, as you say, hidden sugars. There are other ways that people are going to get sugar into their bodies without even realizing. So rather stay away from drinks and from eats where you know they are full of sugar.
The recommendation is to limit your added sugar intake to no more than 40 grams a day. One of the best ways to understand sugar grams is by doing a simple calculation, which is as follows. Take the grams of sugar and divide it by 4. So for example, 40 grams of sugar divided by 4 equals 10. The number you get when you divide by 4 is the number of teaspoons of sugar that you're consuming. So a typical can of soda has about 36 grams of sugar. Divided by 4, you get 9. That means that a typical can of soda has 9 teaspoons of sugar.
All right. Surprisingly, May, is a McDonald's milkshake. May, can you guess how many teaspoons of sugar in a McDonald's milkshake?
I have no idea.
And whopping, absolute whopping 28 teaspoons of sugar in a McDonald's milkshake. A Snicker bar.
I used to love those.
A large Snicker bar, 13 teaspoons of sugar.
Wow. Yeah,
May,
shocking.
it's all around us. It's in our cereals to start the day with. It's in our cereals. I went down an aisle, a cereal or breakfast aisle one day and could hardly find a breakfast cereal, a box without sugar.
Yeah, I believe you. Yeah, it looks like the sweets aisle. More
Correct.
like a sweets aisle or the
Correct.
candy aisle.
What do we do? What's the big issue of sugar on the health?
Well, sugar, like we said, sugar, in all these ways that it comes into the bodies, it's usually packaged in refined foods. So it's going to have the same challenges as any other refined carb on the diet. We're going to fill our blood vessels with sugar, and it's going to affect every organ in the body because the blood flows to every organ in the body. So get sugar into your blood and you've got sugar problems all over. It also has serious effects on the brain as well. I think you will talk more about that later.
Right. Let's just continue with the soft drinks. Let's look at the South African setting here. According to an article that I read, and the quote says the following: consumption of soft drinks has risen more than 68%, from 55 litres in 1999 to around 93 litres per person per year in 2012. So one person in South Africa consumes about 93 litres of soft drinks per year. According to Dr. Furman May, he says the following: sugar-laden drinks increase the worst type of fat on our bodies. Connection between soft drinks, especially high sugar diet, and overweight or obesity?
Well, I can believe that. If you just look at a place like Mexico, for example, Mexico is known, is right now, is number one in obesity in the world. And in Mexico, people eat high sugar diets there. An example, and you were talking about sugar-laden drinks, Coke is almost freely available to the people in Mexico. Even in some schools, they have no running water, but they have Coca-Cola. People can have access to Coca-Cola for very, very cheap. So everybody just drinks and drinks all these sugar-laden drinks.
May, let's look at sugar and the brain. I have come across an interesting study that was done that compares sugar and cocaine and its effect that it has on the brain. A famous university conducted this study to test what sugar-addicted mice would do when presented with cocaine or sugar. You will not believe the outcome. The sugar-addicted mice, even when presented with cocaine, still preferred the sugar.
Wow.
They became more addicted to sugar than to cocaine, resulting then in more sugar required. And the reason why is because they needed that dopamine level to spike.
Wow, I can believe that. When we look at our kids, we can see that there's always requirement for sugar. Children love sugar and they just want more and more. I guess, when the pleasure center of the brain is fed, it grows. And it wants more and more. It overrides reason, and it just wants more and more. So, yeah, I can believe it.
Maybe another piece of information that is especially good for parents who are very interested in the academic achievement of their children is the following study that speaks about brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And this brain-derived neurotrophic factor is responsible, 1, for creating new long-term memories, 2, responsible for learning, and 3, for higher order thinking.
Right.
Now, diets high in sugars reduces the growth of BDNF and make it hard for adults and children to learn new things. 80% of our food choices contain sugar. So you can understand how sugar negatively affects brain development, negatively affects learning, higher order thinking, and creating long-term memories. I remember, when you cram, everything goes short-term, and that transition of information from short-term to long-term, it's like there's a break in the chain.
It'll really be hard for that to happen if a lot of sugar is present
in the diet.
Yeah, I've experienced it in my own life. I don't know if you have, but when I eat a lot of sugary foods and I find that I struggle to study, I struggle to memorize,
focus,
and to remember
concentrate.
Things. Absolutely. It really does affect the brain.
So just to sum up again for parents to understand that a high sugar diet is a break in that link to help children to engage in higher order thinking. It does affect their learning process, specifically their transition from short-term to long-term memory. So let us be cautious and let us be selective, especially from breakfast right through to supper. Read the labels, make sure that we can begin to minimize and eliminate as far as possible sugar in the diet.
I think another word of caution to parents, our bodies do need sugar, so we do need to have a certain amount of sugar in the diet, but our sugar should come from fruit, our sugar should come from whole grains.
All right.
And then if we're having these sugars in our body, these are much safer, they're good for the brain, very good for all areas of the body.
Yes. Just to continue on the reading of labels, it is so confusing for all of us these days when we go to the supermarket, we read the labels. There's so much that we don't understand. We've prepared a list of hidden names and forms of sugar that we probably did not know that this is sugar.
In fact, some of them could look quite healthy. So we assume
The
it's
first
healthy.
one sounds very healthy, agave nectar. The second one, barley malt,
Yeah.
brown rice syrup. And we think brown rice, and so syrup is healthy, but that's just a hidden name to confuse the consumer and think that it is healthy, but really it is not. Brown sugar is really just white sugar that is browned by using molasses.
That's right.
And we think that brown sugar is a healthier sugar, which really is not the case. Cane juice, crystals. That's just another hidden form of sugar. Cane sugar, caramel, corn syrup solids, dextrose, fructose, fruit juice concentrate. And we oftentimes think it's fruit juice concentrate. It's just another name for sugar. That it's said that sugar is so concentrated in that fruit that it is detrimental to the health. Glucose itself, golden syrup, grape sugar. Here's the big one, May. High fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
Long name, and it is abbreviated with HFCS. Parents, please be aware.
out for that.
HFCS, high fructose corn syrup.
Very dangerous to the health.
It is probably, well, it is talked about as one of the most dangerous forms of sugar in our products, and it's virtually found almost everywhere. Be cautious, be smart, read your labels carefully. Next is raw sugar, refiners syrup, and sucrose. So these are all hidden names and forms of sugar that the consumer is oftentimes not aware of, and ignorantly we allow our families and our children to eat these things, and we don't realize how disease is beginning to build in the bodies.
Yes, absolutely. When you talk about disease, sugar lowers the immune system. So if there's a flu virus going around and you've just consumed 3 ice creams for the day with caramel topping or chocolate topping, you're in line for that virus. If you meet someone that has the problem, your immune system is very suppressed, and you will probably get the...
May, you don't even need to eat 3 ice creams. You just need to have a box cereal that's full of sugar.
Absolutely.
Then you have peanut butter that has lots of sugar in it. Then a juice that we think it does not even need to be Fanta or one of those soft drinks. It can be a juice that is concentrated, and the sugar level is so high. And then bread has got sugar in, so much sugar is in there. And we're not even at lunchtime yet, and you already exceeded your
sugar
allowed
limit for the day.
of sugar for the day, correct?
Yes, and doctors even advise some parents, especially parents with children who have ADHD, doctors often advise them that if you're going to give your child 100% fruit juice, dilute it 50-50.
With water?
Absolutely, because at least that reduces the sugar a whole lot. Fruit juice is very high in sugar.
Well, when we speak about liquid intake, we referred earlier on to the sugary drinks and the cans. And it's interesting that water's got 0 grams of sugar.
Yeah.
You can't find anything healthier than water.
Everything that comes from the Creator comes to us, and it's perfect for the body. It's perfect for circulation. It's perfect to revive and to get the body into the right pH level.
So the question that we probably have in our minds is, what now? We've seen all these hidden names and for the different kinds of sugars in our diets. What then do we do? Are there any naturally healthy sweeteners that we can use?
Absolutely, absolutely. If you just look around for the colors, when I enter the grocery store, I always go to the fruit and vegetable section, and right there's plenty of fruit that we can make fruit salad. We can add the fruit to our cereal. Like if you make a big bowl of oats in the morning, you can add some fruit salad in there. You can also add raisins or dates. Just chop them up nicely, add them to your cereal.
Okay, May, so you are saying there's fruit, there's raisins, there's dates. I believe that date sugar, it's not very common in the supermarkets, but if our viewers can can look for date sugar. It is the healthiest
The
sugar
absolute
that
healthiest.
you can find. Honey and stevia not so common. Honey, a little bit pricey, but honey is better than sugar.
Better if the honey is raw honey, better if you know that it's from a good source, because nowadays, many times the honey is refined and they add sugar to the honey and they add water and sugar so that it can go further. So there's a lot going on with our food. We need to be really careful.
Careful.
Yeah.
Great. We are going to have a look now, May, at, we spoke about the grease, the fat, the oil in the diets. We spoke about the refined and processed foods and how harmful it is. We've spoken about the sugar. We have not spoken about salt much.
No, we didn't.
Probably just a few words on salt is, you have a saying about the cook or the mother in the kitchen and the salt shaker.
Yeah. Well, I just believe that whatever salt the mother cooks with, that should be enough. When the food is brought to the table, it should not be accompanied by the salt shaker. Because, people get into this habit of just using salt, whether they need it or not. Some people, before they even taste the food, they just add salt. And even some other condiments which are high in salt.
Right,
And
like
salt
for
is
example,
the
salad
damaging
dressings.
food. Salad dressings, yes.
Commercial salad dressings that we buy in the
Commercial
shops,
salad
highly
Even your-
salt.
Yes, very high in salt. Even your pickles and gherkins and whatever pickles you're using, all very, very high in salt.
Yes.
Even your pickled onions and so on.
So our intention is not to make things worse for our viewers, but it is just to pass on information to you that you become a wise shopper and an intelligent eater, that you need to know what is in your products that you buy from the supermarket, and as much as you can minimize the salt intake. Be aware of the salt that is in all these different products, especially your salad dressings, especially your canned stuff.
Yes.
Also have a lot of salt in it to preserve whatever's in the can.
Yeah.
So just be aware of it, so that if you develop these issues, that you know where you should cut out, where you should minimize. Salt, sugar, processed, refined. There's a lot of talks these days about inflammatory food.